This show is supported by Twin Cities Eye Consultants. No matter your seat at the match, Twin Cities Eye Consultants will make sure you can see your favorite players. Book your next eye exam 24/7 at tcecmn.com. Welcome in, Loons fans, to another edition of the Matchday Preview presented by Twin Cities Eye Consultants. Jonathan Harrison here, joined once again by Manny Lagos. I am in Minnesota. Manny, you are out in California for Coachella Invitational. How are you doing today, sir? We've got plenty to discuss.
We do. I feel like the introduction was a little like, once again, we haven't done a lot of podcasts in the off season.
It's been a bit, yeah.
Maybe one in the new year. So I would say this one feels exciting. Like, I felt like the last one we did, I was like, oh, the season's so far away. I'm like, whatever. It's real now. I mean, we're talking like this weekend will be the last game before we open in Austin, and which is insane. So like it was going slow. And now it's like, boom, it's all here.
Yeah. And we've also, as you said, we've got the season to discuss, which comes up starting next weekend at this point, which is, as you said, crazy that it's happened this fast. But we've also got the big, massive news that happened last week. James Rodríguez, when this news broke, when the MLS reporters were starting to break this news, I texted you and you're like, I don't want to talk about it until it's official. Well, Manny, it's now official. We're on a podcast. Let's talk about it. James Rodríguez signing through May with the club option to finish out the year. We know his credentials, one of the best, one of the true superstars in this sport, signing with Minnesota United. Let's get your initial reactions when this started to percolate around the club, when you started to hear that this might be a possibility, and now your reactions to the fact that this is reality. He will be wearing the number 10 jersey for Minnesota United this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with like being a fan myself. Like when you think about it, I mean, the shock, the awe, the excitement, even when you work in the club for something like this to happen, you just can't help but be a fan. Like, and think about just what an iconic player this guy is and was. And we'll get into the show. He's not like in his perfect moment in his career. There's actually some real benefit that both sides probably need each other to get the best out of each other to really make this work. But, somebody who's played with the other most famous Colombian soccer player, Carlos Valderrama, I was even sneakily a little bit like, just to be in around two of the most famous Colombian soccer players of all time would be amazing. And it happened. And I'm out here where about half the teams in the league are playing their preseason games. And there's amazement even within everybody I've talked to and been around, because it just was, I don't think a lot of people saw it coming. And that's awesome. I love that. It was such a surprise, both for our club, but I think for the league in general.
Yeah, because I think you mentioned the surprise, and I think a lot of people, when the initial news broke, they questioned, wait, that Minnesota? Like, it feels, because there's been reports and speculation that James Rodríguez would come to MLS at some point in his career, but with a superstar like him, they usually go to the Miamis, the LAs. Rarely do they come to the Minnesotas. I mean, we saw Thomas Mueller go to Vancouver, which is kind of a step in that same direction last season. But James Rodríguez, I think that's the surprise for me, is that like it's our club, as you said, thinking of it as a fan. This is incredibly exciting to see a guy with that level of skill, that level of talent, that level of superstardom, wearing the jersey that we all support. And I'm super excited to see that. As you said, there are obviously questions about where he's at in his career, his recent play in the club form, but he always shows up for Colombia. And considering it's a World Cup year, you'd expect that he's going to really gear up the first half of the season and get ready for the World Cup coming to North American shores this summer. But I'm really excited to see him in Loons uniform, especially at Allianz Field. I can't wait for that home opener. to see the reaction there. But this is going to be a really fun first half of the season. Hopefully the entirety of the season, I would expect to see how this plays out on the field. Let's talk about how he fits on the field, because that's obviously the big question. We know how the Loons played last year. We've seen a little bit of an evolution at the preseason games so far, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But how do you expect James Rodríguez to fit into what Cameron Knowles is going to put out on the field this season?
Yeah, I think because you asked that question, we kind of shifted from the context of why Minnesota and what we're doing into like, how is this going to play out? I think it's important that I give a little more context to the fact that the stars aligned, partly because we had the discovery rights for him, partly because he is going to be built the Colombian national team around him at the World Cup, captain of Colombia. Full disclosure, because his family lives in this country and goes to school here, combined with he really wanted to be in the U.S. prior to the World Cup to prepare. They all kind of aligned for us to make this signing. And again, with that comes a reality that, every player we sign, young, old, like their prime, it's a contract between two sides, and there's things that happen. And so I think with this one, there's no doubt that it's okay to talk about. He's coming here because he wants to be in a good environment, a good club. That's what I love about this signing. Before the World Cup, he wants to be in and around a club that has values and a system that they believe in, that tries to bring out the best in every individual player by the collective group. And I think he gravitates towards that. He wants to prepare for the next 4 months for the World Cup. That's a little selfish on his side, by the way. It's not like this is all for club, but both sides are like, hey, let's see how this goes. And the great thing about us is that we actually have the option to the end of the year. So if he comes in and gives us that spark, which I'll now shift to the actual player, you got to be so excited because it's really cool. And I would say before we get to talking about the context of him as a player, he is a true number 10. And what I love about soccer is you could have a great debate right now about like, do 10s play wide or now they coming back to the middle of the field? It may only last a year or two, but my gut says the number 10s are kind of gravitating back towards the middle of the field, whether it's these back threes or, kind of a back four now with a two defensive midfielders or one midfielder. It's kind of happening. So I'm really excited about his strength. He is a number 10. But great touches, loves to score from distance, loves to make passes and break lines into the final third. His big question mark, we will be getting around the field. There's no doubt about that. It's not like he's that old. He's 34. I think he's in incredible shape, but he still has lost a step in terms of just that, pressing and repressing and figuring out how he makes an impact on both sides of the ball. But when it comes to his offensive side, he's exciting because he loves to kind of score. I think he's like a 1 in 3 every game, which is a really good return over 500 games for an offensive midfielder. So he really is a special player and a special kind of value that Colombia has built their national team. And they have one of the top 5 national teams, I think, right now in the world. So it's just like, we'll keep talking, but it's just exciting. Unbelievable. 50 million Twitter for followers. That makes no sense. Number 2 behind Messi. That's just an unbelievable.
Yeah, he's really, truly a global superstar. And as you said, a true number 10. And that's kind of where my mind goes as to how this formation, I know that's kind of the easiest way to talk about it. It's kind of the base way to talk about it as well, is just how does the formation
too, by the way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Just trying to figure out how you maneuver around, how Cameron Knowles will maneuver around those pieces. Because we saw a couple of years ago with Emmanuel Reynoso, the club played 4-2-3-1, had that true number 10 in there, and Reynoso was that guy. They shifted away from that a little bit under Eric Ramsey, having the striker up top, having a couple of attacking midfielders behind him. And it's very interesting to see. It'll be very interesting to see how that shifts and what that evolution looks like when we've seen a little bit of it on the field so far at Coachella. I want to talk quickly off the field, how this impacts the club off the field before we get back more into on the field stuff and what we've seen so far at the Coachella Invitational. How does this affect Minnesota United off the field? Obviously, we know big name, massive name. You mentioned it, 50 million Instagram followers. The jersey sales will surely be there. There'll be certainly more interest in this club than there's probably ever been because of the level of superstardom that he has. How does this impact the club off the field? What has been the reaction, I guess, in the locker room as well from some of his teammates that he's going to be teaming up with now?
Yeah, I mean, I'll even start to give the kind of locker room side of it. Obviously, just being down here, I got a chance to talk with Michael Boxell yesterday, and just seeing like him, such a quality leader, and so excited to see where this goes and how that the culture that the club and the group had built, and how does Thomas fit in there? Is an unknown for sure, but I think the club is in a place where they're just really excited to embrace him and see if his values and his kind of qualities will elevate the group. And I don't think there's the same tension or nervousness, say, for example, like with Reynoso, where I still think the quality values was uncertain, and it was hard to figure out that kind of power dynamic. I can tell you right now, I think they're all excited. We've got some great leaders and guys who've been in this club for a long time. They're going to both embrace and open arms, but I think they're also going to push James to, be part of our value system. And from what I've seen and the person I've looked at shortly here, I think this is a lovely guy. I think this person, you would be hard to find bad things about him and his career off the field. You'd be hard to find a lot of things that say, oh, I don't like that guy. So it's clear, he's been a lovely guy in his career, and that's probably why he is so loved, particularly in the South American hemisphere. Um, and then you move into the club itself. I want to just go back to, um, it's been a tough year for Minnesota.
Mhm.
Sometimes we forget why we have such a special place in a special community. Um, and we don't, we kind of sometimes shrink. And I think this is a good example of there's a lot of people that want to come here for a lot of reasons, a lot of different sports, because we are a special community. We do a lot of things really well. And hopefully this gets us a good excitement about reminding ourselves to put our chest out there, because more people want to come and live and be around us in our community than people think. And I think a lot of our sports teams, and particularly Minnesota United right now, is doing such a good job. I'm excited that we're putting our chest out, and somebody who's that big wants to be here.
Yeah, it's as we've said a number of times already on this podcast, it's exciting. It'll certainly be interesting to see how it plays out over the next couple months, hopefully throughout the entire season.
But
So let's
Jonathan, going back
yeah,
going back into that system stuff, but this
yeah.
is, I mean, listen, I mean, we're going to talk about our games now, but that's exciting too, right? I mean, you've
No, absolutely.
how does this work? I'm like, so many different ways it could work. I mean, obviously, Cam could go to a back four and figure out different ways to play him in the middle, or play him like a wide right coming in. Those are different. Or if he goes back to some type of back five, obviously you could do a lot of different ways of putting him in the middle and two defensive midfielders. You could even put him up top at a 4-4-2 underneath Yaboa or whoever's playing up top. So I think the world is kind of like wide open for how Cam and his staff want to build Hamas into the group, or frankly, maybe have him come off the bench. Maybe say, you know what, you've got the legs not to play 90 minutes. I want you as my second half super sub. Who knows? So it's just exciting. Like I said, I don't quite have it, but I think it does open up a lot of ability for Cam to think about different ways he wants to play.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about what we've seen so far at the Coachella Valley Invitational. 2 games so far, 2 shutouts for Minnesota United, 2 clean sheets there. 3-0
Love
win
that,
over
by the
Sporting
way.
Kansas City.
Yep.
Absolutely, defense still rock solid. 3-0 win over Sporting Kansas City, and then a 0-0 draw yesterday against DC United. What did we see? What were your big takeaways from what you've seen in those first 2 games? Obviously, the first game featured a lot more of what we would probably consider the starters. Second game featured a lot of the younger guys from MNUFC 2. Get to see them against some MLS players on the other side. Exciting as that was to see. I'm interested to hear what you thought of the 2 games that you've seen so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating because they were our first like kind of preseason games where the public got to see, and people got to kind of discuss, where we are tactically, where things are going. I think for me, I saw a team that was a little tentative to start the Kansas City, and a little bit like, how are we going to kind of navigate the game? And it felt a little bit like stalemate-ishy, like we're going to sit a little bit deeper, maybe like we did last year. But I think Cam got the guys going and said, no, let's be a little more expansive. Let's go forward. And they kind of, floated in between a back five and a back four throughout the game, which I loved. And I think Cam really, I think, wants to explore not just playing one specific way every game. I think he's going to want to try to get the guys back to a mode. If we're looking at Eric Ramsey 2 year cycle, remember he really had moments where he played, 5-4-1. I'm sorry, or even a 4-5-1. Excuse me. So he floated for that first year, floated a lot between a back four and a back five. Last year really became, specifically a kind of a deep line back five. So long story short, just from that, I saw a game where the guys had a little bit more flexibility and ability for themselves individually to be a little more expansive. Pick up that expansive higher up the field now. I love the Kansas City game because right when we scored, we were excited to keep going forward and kind of take over the game. And I thought it was a really good outing for the guys that started the game, the subs that came in. By the end of the game, it felt like a really comprehensive result for a kind of like our looking potentially like our starting group against Austin on opening day.
Lock in the best available seats for the first 5 home matches of the 2026 season at up to 30% off. Our first 5 ticketing plan starts at just $130 and gets you a spot at the huge cross-conference home opener against FC Cincinnati, a Saturday afternoon showdown against LAFC, and much more. More information at MNUFC.com/tickets. Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing that one of the things that stuck out to me, obviously outside of Marcanic's incredible performance, once again, just picking up where he left off from last season, was the formation. It looked like, to me at least, my layman's eyes, a 4-man back line,
Yep.
4 midfielders, two forwards up front,
Yep.
obviously with Pereira dropping back a little bit deeper than Yeboah. But I think that was the thing that stuck out the most to me. We got used to over the last year, that 5-man back line with the wingbacks pushing forward. This moves Bongi up higher up the field, gets him involved in the offense a little bit more. I liked what I saw from Shankly, but for me, the standout was Marcanic. Scoring on both goals, and I think he was the assist on the other. He had a really, really good game in that first game, and that's exciting to see, picking up where he left off. And I think answering a lot of those questions of, hey, he had a great season last year. Can he do it? Can he do it for a second season in a row? And I know it's Kansas City. I know there's questions about what they're going to be able to do this season, considering how short their roster is. But to be able to do that in your first preseason game, I think that's very exciting for what he can do this season.
Oh yeah, I think you obviously, Anthony. It's surreal to see him kind of just continue where he left off last year.
Well, he's got his brother in the league now. He's got to keep up the goal scoring form.
But I also not to disrespect like Anthony, like he just does that. So let's talk about Chancalay. I mean, that was fun. Like he had some really nice movements, some nice touches, got guys forward. I completely agree with you. I thought he had a really, really good outing. From looking to get ways that we can solve problems offensively. Outstanding. What a great cross in the first goal. I really thought that was a very tough technique to kind of get to the end line, get it up in the air, allow Anthony to go in and attack it.
I think Shankly is my biggest question, not because of what he can do on the field. We saw that early on in his New England Revolution days, but I with the signing of James, as we started this show, how does he fit in? Because that's now Pereira and Shankly, both left-footed guys who would play normally that side of the field, that part of the field. How do you fit them in with what James brings? You mentioned bringing James off the bench or bring one of those guys off the bench. I think that's going to be very interesting to see how Cameron Knowles kind of manages those 3 guys, because they all fit in and around the same area, you'd say, especially Pereira and Shankly. We saw Pereira move a little bit wider last season as the season wore on. So I'm interested to see how Shankly fits in, but I did like what I saw from him. Bangukle Longwane getting upfield a little bit more. I'm very interested to see how that works, and hopefully get him back into the goal scoring and goal assisting form that we had 2 seasons ago when he was just off the charts good. Hopefully pushing him up a little bit higher will get him back into that goal scoring form, Manny.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that, again, I think there's going to be a little bit more flexibility about playing a couple systems and getting guys habits to remind themselves that, sometimes we love the great defending, but we also believe you can get forward and you can create chances. And again, I think we've talked about Anthony on the left, whether it's a right back in the back 4 or Bongi. at the end of the day, I think Cam is going to want to be a little more fluid with getting guys excited about being in different positions and getting into that box, getting good chances, and then getting back and kind of imposing ourselves in the game by having that good defensive shape. So 2 games now were 2 shutouts, incredibly exciting because it was 2 big different groups. You had one kind of your first team starters potentially, and then you had a lot of young guys who are still trying to kind of impress the staff about either making the roster on the first team or our fringe starters that are going to play a massive role. So really enjoyed both games so far. It really is. And it sets up a great, fun last game this weekend, which we know will have some impact because usually that game is the guys who are starting the following week.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'd expect Drake Callender, who got his first start for the club in the preseason against Sporting Kansas City, 3-0 win there, came up with a big save late in that game. And you'd expect him to get that start against his former side, Charlotte, that the club acquired him from last year. I think for my next question, what positions do you think have the most intriguing battles? I think for me, it goes to that center back partner alongside Michael Boxall. We saw in the Sporting Kansas City game, Morris Duggan got the start, played exceptionally well, but you have Nicholas Romero there, who played incredibly well throughout most of the season, came off the bench later on as the season wore on and in the playoffs. But that's an intriguing spot for me on the field. Probably one of the more intriguing spots is who starts alongside Michael Boxall at that center back spot.
Yeah, it's fascinating because now you're going for like, if we're going to play a back four, you've got for four essentially. If you're thinking about Harvey, you're thinking about Dugan, you're thinking about Boxall, you're thinking about Diaz. So you've got and Diaz obviously went to the right back, so we could talk about him, how people felt his run in the KC game was. I thought it was solid. He did have 2 of those turnovers that led to their good chances. We should give a shout out to Callender. I thought those were really good, sharp saves that he made when it was 0-0, which were important. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting in that I want those battles right now. I want us to have the defensive intensity of when you're in there, we're going to be a great defensive group. So for me, if it's 4 player for 2 spots, I want the battle. I want all those guys to be fit, hungry, and then I want when they're in there to kind of have the values that Cam implements in terms of our shape and our compactness. And again, we should take incredible pride in the last 2 years of growth. And I even say our MLS iteration of from the beginning when we leaked a ton of goals to where we always got better and better. I felt like every year pretty much defensively. And I think that's important. I don't want to lose that, even if we want to try to evolve and become a little bit more expansive and take the game to teams a little more or possess our own ball possession higher up the field. So it's going to be a good battle. You're right. I mean, and Romero's only 22, Dugan 25, Diaz pretty young. So it's there's some good young up and coming quote unquote center backs around, our machine of Michael Boxall. So.
Yeah, I don't want to think too far into the future, but if you can get those guys here to stick around long term, that's a pretty good center back pairing between Dugan and Romero. Once Michael Boxall unfortunately hangs up his cleats because
that's going to happen. He's just
father time wins all, but
he's looking fit again once this year though.
Yeah. He's got the World Cup. New Zealand's going to be in the World Cup. He's got to be fit. He's got to be ready. This is probably one of his most exciting seasons to be able to play in the World Cup. So he's certainly getting ready for that. But how does this defense? How do you think the defense changes this season with what we've seen so far in the 2 games? Defense playing a little bit higher up the pitch. Obviously, we've talked about the 4-man back line. Switching to that, how does that change what Loons fans should expect to see from the defensive approach this season for Minnesota?
Yeah, I think it really then now becomes insanely important about our what types of system and what types of individual and collective players we put in front of that back 4, back 5. Obviously, Trapp and Chiantis had great years last year. Outstanding leadership by Will year in and year out. Chiantis just kind of took the league by storm, and it's just so young that it's so exciting to see where he goes. Although, remember, sometimes he dip a little bit of a pop, and it might take Triantis a little time to get going just because, things went so well last year, and that doesn't always work out that way. But it's going to be important to figure out, is that the right mix? We've got Owen Jean there. We've got Peter Stroud now. Mm-hmm. We're going to have to sometimes maybe play with one there if we're trying to get more guys higher up the field. So I'm really intrigued about how Cam goes about deciding what pairings make sense, or if it's just one, frankly. and we got to put other guys higher up the field. So it's going to be so important because as the game gets a little bit more expansive and we're trying to get a little bit higher up the field, that position where you block holes in front of the back 4 or 5, or that recovery that you don't allow transition moments is so important.
Yeah, and that was going to be the next thing for me is what level of play, or not level of play, what level of expectation do you put on Trapp and Triantis, that midfield pairing that we saw at the end of last season? We saw, you mentioned, Trapp had an exceptional season last year that I think took a lot of people by surprise. Triantis, when he came in after the summer transfer window, was outstanding. Obviously, when you get on the highlight reel for a 50-yard goal, you're always going to be known for that. But his ability to kind of be everywhere on the field, defensively, offensively, getting involved in the offensive side, being or helping out on the defensive side, really surprised me and really was a big help for Will Trapp there at the end of the season. How important will those two guys be to the defensive approach this season? Because as you said, with 4 guys back there, you have one less guy than you had last season. If you're pushing a little bit higher, you're going to need those guys in the midfield to run a little bit more and be a little bit filling gaps all over the field. Those guys feel like they're going to be really important to how this team plays this season, more so than maybe any of the attackers.
Yeah, and I would say even the other space is the possession with purpose higher up the field. So it's not only the expectation that you're going to ask these guys to stop big time transition moments if you're trying to get numbers up the field and you're trying to kind of like be caught a little bit, so to speak, and recover, and have those guys really be smart about how the team doesn't allow counterattacks. But let's even talk about just keeping the ball and deciding when we go forward and when we take risks and when we actually just move it. And by that, I mean, not just play backwards. I think there's an evolution where Cam's going to want these guys to make good decisions and really good breaking lines so we can get those guys, our defensive numbers up and the whole lineup. So there'll be a lot of pressure on any of the center midfields, like whether it's Owen, whether it's Peter Stroud, whether it's Will with Triantis, that there's going to be expectation of both cleverness and just their tactical acumen offensively to keep the ball with purpose. Now that becomes really hard when you're tired and you're working hard, and it's just easier to pass it back to Calendar and let them come at us. So I'll be fascinated to see how they react to that. But it's also exciting because you've got players like Pereira and Chancalay that, like, if you find them in the right spaces, your job's kind of done too a little bit. Whereas you can find them in good spots, you don't have to be the creative pass. You just have to be the smart decision-making pass that allows us to move our lines forward.
So we've talked a lot about what we've seen in the first game, what we saw in the first game. What did you see? What stood out to you in the second game, where we had a lot of the depth pieces, the younger guys who normally play for the twosies on the field? What did you see from them? What stood out to you? Who was the standout performer for you yesterday?
Yeah, it's so fun to watch, especially this preseason where this was really the first outing for the kind of, I would say, the younger guys and a lot of guys that are new to the club. So it was just really cool to watch, just because I feel like people realize how hard these guys work in preseason, how much work the staff, the players, and to get to express that work a little bit yesterday was awesome to see. I thought defensively the whole team was really, really good. Maybe the last 15, 20 minutes got a little bit tough. DC put in a lot more subs of starters and reserves throughout the game. And I thought we handled it really well collectively. I thought we looked organized. I thought particularly that first 20 minutes, we had some chances at goal. The end of that first half, I think the best chance of either team was Stroud's chance, which we had a nice movement and kind of build up through Kamara and through Mitchell. And I'll start with the Mitchell. I thought there were some really exciting moments there. Just a different type of player than we have on the roster in terms of quickness and speed. Coming in a left fit, he had a couple good shots and a couple good kind of exciting moments. So he was really one of the players I saw live that I want our fans to get excited about, because I think that's a good addition to maybe how we break teams down in the future as we build out some new speed on the wing wide. So just a good outing. Peter Stroud, I thought, had a good outing. Kamara had a good outing. Owen was just his solid self, maybe didn't put the impression on the game that he wanted to. Devin Pitt-Elford, our local kid, had a great battle up and down with Caden Clark yesterday. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're watching, I thought that was hilarious. Like that first half, I felt like 5 times in a row, the two of them were just clashing. And Devin just looks fitter and stronger every year. So I think it's exciting to see him and his athleticism. Unfortunately, I haven't found out today, but he had that injury, got hit in the head. Tough collision.
Mm-hmm.
Very brave the way
Yeah.
Devin was flying up the field. But had some really good passes and crosses in that first half that put him under. I thought Dang was active, maybe not his most impressionable outing, but he's working hard. And I think, again, I think he wasn't finding how he wanted to kind of help solve us offensively, but I liked the work rate side of it. I thought that side, he made some good runs and he was battling to get some flick ons and help us win second ball. So it was just a fun game. I mean, DC had some good moments. They're in a transition year. They've signed a lot of big players. A lot of those big players played against us, that young group yesterday, and we held our own.
Yeah, absolutely. One final game coming up, as you said, Saturday against Charlotte. A little bit of a different test than we've seen in the previous two games. A playoff team from last year. What are the questions that you have that you want answered in this final game before we get to the season opener in Austin next weekend, essentially?
Yeah, it's just that balance of these games are so hard because I think they want to shore up a little bit of their tactical stuff that they feel like is really important. Just like how the lines are connecting together, and then that intensity and tempo is really really important. It does become a little hard because guys, their eye is on next week, so sometimes they don't always want to go 100% physically. But then the game itself usually tends to take over where they're like, oh, we want to try to make sure we have good tempo and rhythm going into the final game. So it tends to maybe like these games start out like a chess match that end up becoming very physical, which I actually think is good. I think you need a slap to the face to remind yourself that like when you go to the regular season game, it's a whole different intensity level and every little play matters and every moment of kind of collective unity matters. So I want to see us evolve into that for parts of this game where we see how we're reacting, with our box defending, with our recovery and our shape, and then how are we transitioning and getting numbers forward, and then what's the reaction after that. I want to see all those kind of little things that are going to be so important when we go to Austin, because Austin's a new team this year and they've done some good signings. That's never an easy place to play. So somehow if we can get a mindset of the group, getting through it healthy, there's no doubt, but then also just seeing like elements of what it's going to look like when the real stuff starts the following week in Austin.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing for me wanting to see is what this team looks like. Because as we said earlier, this last game, because it's the last game of the preseason before you get to the regular season games on the 21st against Austin, this will probably be it's close to the starting lineup. So I'll be interested to see how that looks, what that team looks like, who's on the field, what formation, and kind of what the differences we see out of that game from what we've seen in the past 2 years under Eric Ramsey. Will be very interested and intrigued to see what comes out of that game on Saturday, which we'll be back probably next week to preview the Austin game and then preview, I guess, the entire season. It'll be a big one next week. Looking forward to that already, Manny. That we're already at the season opener, and it felt like just a couple weeks ago we were all mourning the loss in San Diego, and now we're already here with the regular season almost underway. We talked about the big news at the beginning of the show, James Rodríguez. The other big news, we got the Decade kit, Manny. It's out.
Oh,
it's available for sale. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. One of the best in the league. A lot of throwbacks and touches to the past 10 years of Minnesota United MLS. Your thoughts on the new jersey?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I love the decade kind of theme that we're going to have this year because we have the 50 years of pro soccer and the 10 years of MLS. And it's a little bit like an extension of how awesome the Heritage kind of celebration was and the Heritage kit. And we are knocking it out of the park. Guys, I'm a jersey geek and I love traditional like as well, but like starting with Northern Lights into Starry Night into this like storytelling jerseys of Minnesota, it is unbelievable. I cannot wait to see it live on the field because the sash is so cool and the elements of the loon and the loon feathers and just it's insane. It is honestly, it's got to be close to my favorite. I always say outside of the MLS year, I love our Loon Wing jersey that we did years ago. I didn't love the Loon Wing jersey, full disclosure, that in MLS. I think Adidas kind of messed with our wing a little bit in a way that
I still have the one from the NASL days.
Yeah, so do I. It's amazing. That to me is one of our kind of iconic ones as well. But this jersey is so cool, and it's going to look so good in the guys, and it's such a clever way to bring the sash back. And again, I'm involved in it, so I know the storytelling even gets better over the next couple of years. But this, I think it's one of the best of all time, and I'm not kidding. Like, wait, and it starts out like whatever, but once you start to see it, and then you see it in the guys, and now you're going to see a bunch of them. The sash will come through our loon feathers, and we know how beautiful our loon is. It's just awesome. It is a great jersey, and hats off to our creative department, even ownership and executives get involved in this process, and they work with Adidas. I can tell you, I think Adidas, we push them so hard. I think they love and feel like we're one of the best teams to work with because we don't just do the jersey. We create a storytelling kind of arc around it. And it's genuine. These things take years to develop and build, and super pumped about it. Super pumped.
What's the timeline on that? Just behind the scenes, what's the timeline
2 to 3 years
starting
out.
to create the jersey?
Yeah, 2 to 3 years. So,
wow.
Oh yeah. It's a long arc to go into the process. And, I'm excited, but I think we've unleashed it too. I think it started with Northern Lights. Like I really liked all the jerseys before that. Like the real unity of coordination comes down to both Adidas and Minnesota United and how they're going to work together. And I think that's when things started to explode, when some really high level people in our staff started to work with the high level people in Adidas, where it wasn't like this, but it was like, how do we create awesomeness? And again, I think we are one of the few teams in the league where Adidas is like, this is one of the best organizations to work with. We're going to create some awesome gear.
Yeah, it's certainly unique when you look at the rest of the jerseys. You said you're a jersey geek, so let's get into this. You've seen all 30 new kits. I'm going to put Minnesota to the side because obviously there's a little bit of homer bias on our part. Who are your favorites? Who are your least favorites? Because I've got mine. I want to hear yours.
Can I start with you as I scroll and put this together? Because I've got them, but
okay. So my favorite outside of Minnesota United's obviously is New York City FC. I will start by saying I'm not a big fan of the geometric kind of pattern they have on there, but I love it when teams with the full kit go different color jersey, different color shorts, different color socks. I know Team USA or the U.S. men's national team, we're not supposed to like what Mexico does, but I love when they have the 3 different colors on their full kit. So I'm a big fan of New York City going with the blue, white, and orange for their overall kit look. I think that's one of my favorites. I love what Orlando City did. The yellow top, that really bright yellow top, and then the purple shorts that really sticks out. It's a really cool look for me. My least favorites, I'm probably going to go our first opponent, Austin. Not a fan of that green. I just don't like the green. And then I will say Seattle. And again, I know Minnesota United, we're not supposed to like what Seattle does. The only reason I don't like Seattle's kit is because you're getting rid of one of the best kits in the league. That green and blue stripy kit that they had the past couple of years was incredible, and I'm sad that it's going, but obviously things have to rotate out. So those are 2 of my favorites and 2 of my least favorites so far.
All right. I love your hot takes. I will give you my first disagreement and controversial is I as much as I love the creative explosion, and I actually really hope our league goes more like how Italy does jerseys, because if you kind of take a deep dive, not just like the Serie A, but the whole league of all the pro leagues, Italy by far has the most creative pro jerseys in the world. But I'm going to disagree. I think the Austin jersey is a cool traditional look jersey. I think that's one I really like. So
I've seen a lot of love for it. I just don't vibe with that color. It's not my favorite. So
I'll give you, that's my traditional. I always like Portland's branding as much as they're a big rival of ours. And I think I like that color green more than Seattle color green. I'm more kind of that type of green versus the neon-y kind of look. So I'm a big fan of the Portland one this year because it's a little bit different color palette, but it still feels like it goes well with their logo. And then if you want to look at creative, I really dig that San Jose went outside the box. Grateful Dead. I think that is super cool.
The tie-dye kit is really kind of pops out of there as one of the more unique kits in the league.
It does. And then the Revs one, it's going to be
I don't know.
Yeah, because it's celebrating our country.
It's flashy.
Yeah, it's celebrating the country 200 years in a way that like reminds me of their late 90s kit, which was an era that I played. So there's a little bit of nostalgia for me in that they're going back to that era. So I'm kind of into that one as well.
I also like any team that does collars. I love collars on soccer jerseys. So if you have a collar on your soccer jersey, you automatically get an up.
Yeah.
So Chicago, I like that one. I like that red with what they do. Who else did it? I can't remember some of the other teams that did collars. I think Columbus might have done
there's a
one.
lot of gold this year too. So like
there is.
no, Orlando did the gold.
Yep. Nashville, Columbus.
Nashville. So
I'm not a big fan of Nashville's center logo. I don't like the center logo thing.
Yeah, I think there's more elements to it than I can see, but I do think it'll be interesting to see. Like Orlando's gold is interesting, like obviously the pirate area of that part of the world. So I think that one will be pretty cool. Like I said, I'm going with. Oh man, it's tough to say. It's. I think my least favorite is Red Bulls.
Yeah, that one's a little weird.
It's
I get
again,
the point
I'm
of it.
sounding old, but it's got those weird veins.
Yeah. Them and I think it's San Diego have the weird kind of designs in the lines all over the place. I'm just not a fan of. So
yeah, but you know what though? San Diego started out a little boring for me. So at least they're throwing some color. Like when I think of the San Diego, I think of like color and Padres colors and stuff. So to me, I'm okay with them venturing out a little bit from how boring they were last year, personally. So that's
if they just steal the Padres colors, I'm down for that. Any sports team that has brown and yellow as their main colors, it's so out there. No one else does it other than like the Padres and maybe one Serie A team. Just give me more of that in sports.
Yeah, Roma has that brown, I think. That's super cool.
Yeah. Torino, I think, as well. But just more brown. Get more brown jerseys. I know it's a weird take, but do that.
I like it.
Sportico came out, and this is more of a league-wide thing. Sportico came out with their league valuation or club valuations. Average MLS club now going for $750 million, just continuing to show the growth of this league over the past handful of years. Just incredible to see those numbers skyrocketing up as they've done over the past couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously, there's some great stadiums, some great run organizations, and the league itself has, kind of a great ownership groups, support system, the growth of the game combined with a model that when you peel away the MLS record transfer spending this offseason, this is a league that's still growing and on the way up and wants to compete with some of the best leagues in the world. And I always say, when you have 30 teams doing that, there are no leagues in the world that have 30. Maybe some leagues have 20. There's nobody building a base of growth like we are in the world, which is exciting. And then the level is getting there. Again, I don't pretend that, this is the Premier League right now. It's not. But it is amazing how quickly it is becoming one of the better leagues in the world because it's so well run. It's got great ownership groups. It's got great stadium and atmospheres. And it has players that want to play in it outside of the Champions League, I would say. It's got now one of the most sought-after leagues in the world to play for. So glass half full, amazing. And I think it's a cool model where you can get these kind of evaluations. Ultimately, you're only worth what somebody pays for you. So you got to do that part of it. But it's exciting. And I think it's exciting where the growth is going. I still think the audience on the TV side has to get better. There's no doubt. That should be a goal for the league over the next 5 years is to build that part of the growth will be that revenue is going to be important from a TV audience.
Yeah, and it'll be important to take advantage of the World Cup on North American shores this coming summer, which is going to be exciting to see. And obviously, we've got the calendar flip next year, so a lot of big things coming down the road for the club, for the league, but none bigger than next Saturday at Austin for the season opener for 2026. But before that, we've got the final preseason game from the Coachella Valley Invitational, noon on Saturday. You can watch that on YouTube. You can watch that on Fox 9 Plus. So I've been doing so. Looking forward to that.
Watch it on our website
and on the website. Yep.
So I love how many like locally, how many people, are just texting me and be like, "Hey, it's easy to get the game." And I was like, "Yeah,
make it as easy as possible."
Yeah, it's rare nowadays, and these streaming sports where I have to like figure out 10 to 20 minutes to figure out how to get it.
And you have to have like 6 different packages, sports packages to get just all your your team throughout the entire season.
By the way, how excited are you that there's no more paywall at the Apple, right?
It's going to be great. going to be so much easier just to log
Spread
in.
the word. I know. Just spread the word, because it was
a little bit easier to communicate with those non-soccer friends. Hey, you don't have to pay for 2 different paywalls. You only just have to pay for Apple TV.
It's just there, and it's great production.
And as an F1 fan, getting F1 there at the same time, same price, is amazing too. So looking forward to that.
I did not know. By the way, just like a random, is that an Oscar-worthy movie?
I don't know. I don't think so. It's a cool movie.
Yes.
I watched it on the plane ride out to watched it on the plane ride out to San Diego, but I don't think it's Oscar winning, but it's really well shot. It's really well shot. I'll give it that. It's got some awesome action sequences, but I don't know that Oscar worthy.
Yeah, you can give an Oscar for those things.
Yeah.
But as the movie itself,
the story's not. It's kind of a bland story, but it's cool. It's a good movie. I like it. It's fun. That's all I cared about, was that it was just a fun movie that I could turn my brain off and watch cool action sequences in a sport that I like, that a lot of Americans are starting to come around to over the past couple of years.
I did not know this about you. I'm going to have to do a little bit more F1 research when we have these talks. So,
it's really fun to watch. I'll give you that. It's Manny, I appreciate it. This has been fun. I'm looking forward to this final preseason game. We'll be back next week to preview the regular season opener at Austin FC on the 21st. Looking forward to that one. You can you'll be able to watch that on 7:30 on Apple TV and listen to Dan Terrar and myself in our first game of the season on 1500 ESPN. Looking forward to it. Manny, we'll talk to you next week.
Cheers, Jonathan. Thank you.
Thanks to the production staff, Grace Dierson, Kyle Hayward, Evan Entler, for putting this on every week. And Loons fans, we'll talk to you next week.